What's up guys? My name's Dynasty. Got for y'all today another Mortal Kombat video, this time though in regards to the Mortal Kombat movie dropping in 2021 being produced by James Wan. It turns out that just yesterday, another producer on the film, Todd Gardner, was doing a podcast with the guys over at Collider Live, and he talked in depth for about 15 minutes, giving us a complete rundown of this new Mortal Kombat movie, giving us a bunch of insight, answering questions. It's jam-packed with a bunch of new details, so I'm pretty stoked. This movie appears to be shaping up to be something that die-hard Mortal Kombat fans have been wanting for years now, so I took down a bunch of notes from this podcast. I strongly recommend watching this yourself because I'm not going to go over everything. I do have a bunch of notes here, but in case I missed something, you guys might want to check it out, so link down below. And with that said, without further ado, let's get into it. So, the tone of this movie, this film, is going to be very R-rated, much more like the video game franchise that we've grown to love. It will not be a remake of the classic 1995 movie, and it also won't be like a retelling of the, I guess you could say, the current timeline we have going on for the video games. It's not going to be a retelling of Mortal Kombat 9, X, and 11. It's going to be completely different. Also worth mentioning, Todd Gardner did say that they went back and looked at the older storylines of the franchise and some of the game's mythology, so it seems like they're taking everything they can to present this as authentic as possible. Speaking of authentic, they're trying their best to be very, he said very a few times, very careful with each character's origin and their nationality. And for what it's worth too, New Line Cinema, the company making this film, even they want this movie to be authentic. I know I keep saying authentic, but Todd Gardner mentioned it 100 times in this interview, so yes, it's cool to know that the person writing the script, of course that being Russo, you know, producers like Todd Gardner, James Wan, and even New Line Cinema as a whole, want this movie to stay true to its, to the Mortal Kombat that we love. So that's exciting. I'm gonna try my best to not say authentic anymore. And this next part's kind of iffy. At the same time, as authentic as we want it to be, the characters in the movie aren't gonna be just characters that were introduced in the video games. So like Johnny Cage, for example. Alongside our classic Mortal Kombat characters, there's also gonna be some new characters they're gonna try to introduce. So as authentic as they want this film to be, they also want to create something that can stand on its own. So that's the one concern I got from this entire interview. I understand why they're doing it. It's a movie, they wanted to stand on its own. It happens all the time in film. It's not really a surprise. I just hope it's not filled with a million new characters. We'll see what happens. It could be nothing. So it is what it is. Don't panic just yet. Also, Todd Gardner did say they want to kind of do what the MCU did, but this time for Mortal Kombat, and that got me so stoked because that would mean several films potentially down the line. They're being really optimistic, and who's not going to be excited if we see like 4, 5, 6 Mortal Kombat installments in the next decade? That's amazing. And speaking of like keeping the game authentic, they are in contact with the game developers, aka NetherRealm Studios, so again, they're really doing all the right things with this movie. It's also worth mentioning as well, Todd Gardner did say they're going to try their best to do some origin stories in a way that makes sense for people who probably have never even played the Mortal Kombat games, or if they have, really aren't too familiar with the story. So that's something also I think is really cool. Currently, right now, Sub-Zero is the only character that's been casted, and that's going to be Joe Taslim from The Raid. I think he's going to be a perfect fit for the role. He's going to be playing Bihan. I can't wait to see the rest of the cast. And speaking of the cast, it's worth noting as well is they're not relying on stars. They want this movie to be something that's like its own thing, and I can respect that. As much as I would have loved to have seen, you know, Johnny Cage being played by Ryan Reynolds or Chris Pratt, I could see where they probably don't want like a major actor taken away from the rest of the roster, the rest of the cast, if you will. So safe to say that Sonya Blade will probably not be played by Ronda Rousey, and that's probably for the best. But yes, they're not relying on stars, and I honestly do think that's probably a good thing. Now, speaking of like the actual movie, he does talk about one funny scene where somebody is spamming leg sweeps over and over and over again. It's meant to be like a reference to playing Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3 if you were just like spamming a leg kick in the arcades. It's gonna be like a reference to that, which I think is really cool. Also, like iconic lines like fight, finish him, flawless victory, they're gonna be implemented into the film, but done in a way where it's fitting and it makes sense. It's not gonna be like forced, it's not gonna be like, I guess, campy, if you will. It's gonna make sense. So that's something I can get behind. The movie is gonna be grounded more like the game, the current day games, like MK11, if you will. So a serious approach. Not so much about a tournament, but more about the characters and conflict. This got me really excited because Todd Garner says they're going to talk about why Earthrealm and Outworld have been battling forever. So, yes, that alone should get you excited. They're actually going to talk about the war between Earthrealm and Outworld and focus on the characters, not just, oh, gotta go fight in a tournament. So, I am so stoked to see this movie. They're going to be shooting in Australia for a total of 3 months. They want to stay true to the material, and of course, like I mentioned in the beginning, it's going to be R-rated. So that essentially sums up everything worth noting from this Collider Live podcast that they had with Todd Garner. Like I mentioned, if you guys want to see the full interview podcast, if you will, a link down below. I strongly recommend watching it. It's really good listen. It's really good to see that New Line Cinema is behind this movie being authentic. The writers are, the producers are, we are. Everyone wants this movie to stay true to the material, and based on what was said here, I don't think the movie's gonna flop. I understand there's gonna be some new characters, but it's to be expected. We see it happen so many times where somebody will grab material from like a novel or a comic book, and there's always at least a few new characters, so it is what it is. Will it be Cole Turner? Will that be the main character? We don't know. You just gotta wait and see. So I'm stoked, hopefully you are too, but guys, I am super curious on your take on this movie based on what I just showed you today. Are you excited to watch it now? Who do you want to see in the movie? What actors do you want to see? Are you stoked like I am? If you did enjoy the video, though, please take 1 second, drop a like on it, subscribe for more MK11 and Mortal Kombat movie news on the daily. Till next time, been your host, been Dynasty, guys. Please take care, stay safe. James Wan will not fail us. I'll see you guys later. Peace.
You see, I've been a fan of Dynasty for years now. GTA, MK, and Justice, I'm still down. Rapper meets gamer, I wonder how y'all feel now. That was just a setup, watch it get real now. Okay, so me and Sub-Zero was born in 92, and lyrically I inherited all his fighting moves. A lot of y'all still lost, don't have the slightest clue. The truth disappears in the smoke as if you fighting new.